What's up YouTube? This is going to be a guide on how to use Excadrill in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I'll be providing competitive movesets and some fun meme movesets too. If there's a Pokemon you'd like to see me cover, put it below in the comment section. If you enjoyed these, they help you out, drop a like and let's get into it. So with Mega Excadrill being in the game, obviously in Pokemon Champions coming up, I thought we'd have a look at Excadrill and what movesets it can run and have a think about what Mega Excadrill is going to even be, right, in terms of abilities, since we've already seen its stats. Now, Excadrill has a whopping attack stat, 135 base, and it's got a very, very decent health stat of 110. And it's got good typing of ground and steel too, and reasonable speed when you take into its ability Sand Rush. So virtually this Pokemon is a hyper offensive Pokemon. It's very good at hyper offensive teams and in the sand, right? So sand gives it a double base speed and obviously immunity, and it also gets Sand Force and Mold Breaker. Sand Rush is definitely the best ability on it, but Mold Breaker can be decent as well, and Sand Force in the right situation. So you'll see Excadrill used a lot in singles, especially with normal Focus Sash Stealth Rock sort of lead. So let's have a look at that. So we've got on this one just hyper offensive stats, max attack and max speed, Jolly nature. I like to run Jolly on there. This enables it to outspeed and still do some damage, and has a chance of flinching with moves like Iron Head. So it gets Stealth Rock and Rapid Spin, which is very, very effective. So it can set up its own Stealth Rock. It can increase its speed with Rapid Spin and get rid of any entry hazards as well. And it's still got Earthquake and Iron Head to do like tons and tons of damage, right? Now, you can do a variety here. You can do Sand Rush, or you can just have it as Mold Breaker as the lead. Mold Breaker is good because it can bust through other abilities too, or ignore them. So that can be very good, like sturdy Pokemon and stuff like that. It also can shut down other Pokemon that are trying to set up their own entry hazards as well. So that can be very, very useful for it. Now, sometimes you can even combine the Rapid Spin into a more physical set as well. So you can drop like Stealth Rock off here and put Sword Dance on there, and it's still a very good viable sweeping set because you've got Rapid Spin to increase your speed, and you can still lead with it, and then you've got like Sword Dance, and then you can spam Iron Head and Earthquake, which is pretty damn good coverage in general, right? So terrors you want to look at here. You could do ground, you could do steel. One that is not bad for more hyper on singles play here for a second. Ghost is not too bad because you can actually stop the opponent using Rapid Spin on your Stealth Rocks. If you do put them up there, can be very good for that. And any like normal moves as well, like Extreme Speed or anything like that, just trying to finish it off on 1 health, it could be quite good. And obviously it's weak to fighting, so having a Terra Ghost is quite beneficial there. So that's sort of how Excadrill is going to run all the time in singles. That's pretty much it. Items, you might have a swap up for Air Balloon. That's not a bad one. Gets around any ground type moves, but I'd say you'll generally see Sash or Air Balloon. They're generally the ones you see the most there. Yeah, for that. Now, let's have a look at Sword Dance. So, Sword Dance, you can run this as well on Mold Breaker or Sand Rush. Basically, apart from the Mold Breaker sort of setup kind of sets, you can run Sand Rush on that too, by the way. But you can run a Sword Dance set on there too, like I just mentioned. But you can do Sword Dance and 3 like attacking moves here. It can do quite a few things. Like I said, you can run Sand Rush or Mold Breaker on there. If you're running Sand Rush, obviously you're going to be coupling it with like Tyranitar and Hippowd on Pokemon like that, right? Alright, so we've got Sword Dance to increase its attack. It's already going to be very fast with Sand Rush. Its speed's going to be doubled, right? So you can even do Adamant. The reason why I put Jolly on here is in case the weather does change, you've still got a viable speed stat, right? You could do Adamant if you want, though. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's probably better still to do that. So we've got Sword Dance, Iron Head, Earthquake, pretty much what I already showed you before. Now, the last movers are all sort of something you can play around with. Like, I don't mind running Terra Blast and having Terra Blast Water, because Water's quite a good defensive Terra on it for any, Fire type moves, any, Ground type Pokemon there, fighting. It's going to make a lot of moves neutral, which is going to be quite handy. Obviously, for fighting. So you've got quite a few there. Mainly, it's for fire, though. So that's going to allow you to, be a good defensive sort of type there. Now, water doesn't give you a heck of a lot. Honestly, it doesn't give you a heck of a lot. So you can give it you could give it a utility move, still like Rapid Spin. That would actually increase its speed. So say when the sand does run out or it gets changed, you're still going to be reasonably fast. And you can also get rid of any entry hazards and stuff like that. So that can be a very useful, last move to have on there. Items. Lumberry is very good on there. I like that because you obviously avoid being burned. Anything like that's going to be useful. We went over Air Balloon already. That can be quite good. I'm trying to think of a bit. You might be able to run Troppleberry on there for like a weaker sort of attack. It does have a lot of health, so you might be able to withstand one attack there. But I wouldn't get super high expectations. But yeah, that's what you could definitely go for those sort of options there. I just like Lumberry on there. I think it works very nicely. Obviously, avoid you getting burned as well. Any flame bodies and stuff like that would be bad for Excadrill. So yeah, you've got Sand Rush there doubling a speed, and just couple it with something like Hippowdon or Tyranitar with Sandstream. That's going to be pretty much your best option there. It's fairly easy to use, and it's very, very powerful too. So if you just imagine this, if it was Mega Excadrill, is Mega Excadrill going to have Sand Rush? That's going to be interesting, right? What do you think Mega Excadrill will have in terms of ability, right? That's going to be something to think about too. Like, if it just kept Sand Rush, it's still going to be very good because its stats got a mega boost. All right, so that's Excadrill there. I've tried to cover everything I possibly could. Let's have a look at some double sets here. So doubles can run a little bit differently, and I will sort of, go over that. So I've got a couple of double sets here. I don't mind Focus Sash on there. I think Focus Sash just works on Excadrill. So we've got Iron Head. I've given this Iron Head and high horsepower Rock Slide. So you've got flinching, and you've got a singular target. You could have Earthquake on there as well, but you probably want to put it with a Pokemon that's going to not get hit by it. So if you did have Earthquake, you'd probably want to put it on something like, or couple it with something like a Corviknight, right? Something like that that's not going to, be affected. Or another Air Balloon Pokemon. But yeah, that's sort of up to what you're going to bring there. I just thought Corviknight was a good example. So yeah, Sand Rush, and then you got all its normal moves. Ghost is still pretty good on there because it's weak to fighting, so that can be quite good on there. You could do rock, you could do steel and ground as well, or water. Water's not a bad defensive one. I felt like Ghost worked pretty well. In singles and doubles, Ghost worked pretty well for when I tried it. But you can do its normal stab as well. EVs, 116 we've got here in health. And we've got 140 in speed. You don't need to run max speed on this thing when you've got Sand Rush up, especially for doubles. For singles you can, but not for doubles. And then you've got max attack Adamant Nature, right? You want to have Adamant Nature for sure, right? So yeah, that's pretty sort of standardy set there for Excadrill. It works well, or always has. Most of the time, you're going to see it have Sand Rush too. Singles is where you'll see Mole Breaker more, in my opinion. You're not really going to see it very much in doubles, unless you've got some specific team. But if you're not using Excadrill and Sand, you're not really making the most of it, in my opinion. Really. Okay, so that's the first set. Let's check out the second one. This is... I tried to do like one based around flinching as well, but this time for a Rock Slide. So the last one was... That's definitely a sort of core set, whereas this one's a little bit more gimmicky. We're going Terra Rock this time of Rock Slide. And we've also got Iron Head on there too. I go about Metal Coat because Metal Coat can actually boost up those Steel type moves. If you're having trouble finding an item that, you know, like a duplicate cause on your items, Metal Coat can be another good option there if you're, you know, if you've already got a Focus Sash or something like that, right? Protect and Earthquake, all high horsepower. Max attack and max speed, or, you know, I think I put 114 in there before, but yeah. Put something into, like, at least put 140 into health. That way it's got some extra bulk about it. But you do want to have something on your team. You want a couple of Pokemon on your team that can set up stand like Tyranitar and Hippo, right? I'll go more over some, you know, teammates and stuff in a bit. But yeah, that's sort of what you want there. And this is more of a flinching set. So I'm just going for a flinching move that can hit both things that has stab. I guess you could say that. So that's some double sets there you could have a look at. It pretty much is, it runs one way basically, just as a hard physical attacker that's very fast. So I kind of wanted to have a look at Sandforce because Sandforce is probably, I'd say it's the least used on it really. So you've got Sand going. What Sandforce does, it boosts ground, rock, and steel types by 1.3 times during a sandstorm. Now, it's got all the tools for that. So it's got Iron Head, Earthquake, and Rock Blast. So I thought a loaded dice set could be good for that. And you've got Stellar too for some more damage. So say you got Sand going, you're not going to have your big speed stat. You got Jolly Nature and Max Attack on there for EVs. But you're going to be hitting really, really hard, like super hard, especially with the Stellar boost on top of that as well. And yeah, you're going to be just absolutely destroying stuff. But obviously, the weakness is if it gets outsped. So that's why, you know, Sandforce is not even used as nowhere near as much as Sand Rush. Because Sand Rush, that speed, you know, is what it's all about in this Pokemon going first and stuff. But yeah, that's just another way or something you could think about running on Excadrill. We got a PIMPNITE special here, and it's a good one. I'm going to go over some teammates and stuff, some thoughts and some counters and Mega Excadrill too in this video. So keep checking it out. So this is the fun set. So it does get, the great thing about Mold Breaker is you can get around Pokemon with Sturdy and stuff like that with one-hit KO moves. Now, you could, even in doubles, if you've got like, if you're not sure about a move slot, honestly, you could stick on a Horn Drill or Fissure on there as a throwaway move, and you might be able to secure a lucky KO. Anyway, so this one is Horn Drill and Fissure, Stomping Tantrum, and Substitute. So we get any misses at all, we can get a boosted Stomping Tantrum, and then we've got like Fissure and Horn Drill, you know, hopefully hitting, right? I gave it Max Health and Max Speed Jolly Nature with a Bright Powder. Terra-type Fairy, I thought could be interesting. I mean, Fairy could be good for any fighting type moves coming in. In fact, Fairy isn't a bad, now that I think about it, Fairy actually isn't a bad defensive Terra on Excadrill as well. So you could probably use that. That wouldn't be all that bad, I think, on Excadrill. If you don't want to use one of its main stab moves and that sort of thing. So let's have a look now at some teammates and some counters and stuff like that, because there is a little bit to discuss. So let's do teammates first, because they're probably the easiest. So you want Tyranitar for sure. Tyranitar is very, very good. It sets up the sand, right? And Hippowdon's another really good one too. The good thing about Hippowdon is it's not weak to fighting like Tyranitar is. And yeah, it's very it's bulky as well, like Tyranitar. Yeah, but it's more bulky on the defensive side. So yeah, I personally have those for sure. Another one you've got is Corviknight. I like Corviknight because you can use, especially in doubles, you can use Earthquake with it, which is very handy, right? And also in singles, you can have it as well. It's quite a good Pokemon. You can pivot with it. You can do stuff like Tailwind or U-turn and stuff like that, which can be good. Some other Pokemon you could use on there as well. Special Attacker, Goldengo, works well. Steel type. So there's your special attackers. So you sort of got a good core of Pokemon there. In doubles too, you can actually bring in Incineroar. It doesn't work all that bad. because one of the things that can mess it up is when the sand gets removed, right? So you could leave with Incineroar, because it's such a good Pokemon in every single team nearly. And then you could swap into your sand Pokemon afterwards. So you could have the sand benefit for your team. In case you're versing like a sun team or there's rain and stuff like that, it could be useful. And then you could have something like maybe a Mungus on there too, to redirect any attacks and such, like any water attacks that are aimed at that, or fighting moves and stuff that are aimed at Excadrill, right? So you sort of got and then you've got Incineroar as well, so it works pretty nicely as like a little core. So there's quite a lot of those. I think another good one would be Skarmory too. Skarmory is also a pretty good counter too, now that I'm thinking about it. So you've got Skarmory. Skarmory doesn't really get hit by much. Excadrill does either. Like, you can dodge Earthquake. Ironhead does Donkey. So that's a good counter Pokemon too, Skarmory. So yeah, that's just good at swapping in and tanking moves, that Excadrill would not be able to handle. Another good one, Greninja's not too bad as well. Greninja can handle a lot of, it can handle quite a few Pokemon that Excadrill can't. Say, trying to do something right out here, maybe like slow. Yeah, like slow king. I know this is a bit more of a cherry pick sort of like counter, but it can handle things like that Excadrill would have trouble with, like a bulky water Pokemon that's weak to Psychic. Yeah, Greninja could do that with Dark Pulse and stuff like that. That would be quite good. Yeah, you've got a ton of other stuff. Another good one's Ogerpon. There's a lot of Pokemon that can work well. Ogerpon Cornerstone. That's very good. A very hyper offensive Pokemon that works well, alongside Excadrill. Very similar sort of roles there. So that's good. You got tons of stuff. Now, counters. A big counter, especially singles, even doubles, would be Rotom Wash. Because it's got Levitate, and you're not really doing a lot to it, and it can just destroy Excadrill. So that would be a very, very good counter for sure. Another good counter in doubles would be Rillaboom. Rillaboom is going to be able to outspeed as well, so a Grassy Glide. And it's going to be able to tank at least some of the ground, its ability with Earthquake and stuff like that, so that's going to be a good counter for sure. And then, well, it depends. Any other weather Pokemon that's going to be an issue too. Pelipper can just swap into an Earthquake or a ground type move and set Drizzle up. So, other weather Pokemon too are counters to it, really, essentially. So we'll have a look at Mega Excadrill now. We've got its stats here. And its stats are absolutely enormous. So, like, you've got 135 from a normal one. And then you've got another 30 base power and attack. Also, its speed goes from 88 to 103, which is insane, right? So, what an absolute unit. And if that gets Sand Rush too, you could even drop its speed back a little bit and, build health onto it as well for doubles. But it's going to be very, very fast. It's just going to be a hyper offensive Pokemon, I reckon. And it wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be too far-fetched to say that it would get, pun the pun there, that it would get Sand Rush. I think that would work very, very, extremely well on it. And it keeps the same typing too. But yeah, that's what I think about Excadrill. I think it's going to get probably a similar ability. Or it's going to get, it may even get Sandstream as well. It could get Sandstream. That's actually a possibility. So it could just keep Sandstream. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section what you think of Excadrill if you're still watching. Let's have a look at some stats on it. Okay. So status moves. Really, you're only going to seeing it use Sword Dance most of the time, then Stealth Rot. They're going to be seen a lot. Stealth Rot in singles, obviously. Sword Dance in singles and doubles. It does get, interesting, it gets Hone Claws, but it doesn't really be, the only time that would be beneficial if you had not even Stone Edge, Rock Slide maybe. I don't know, I'm trying to think of like what case you'd even give it to have that. Maybe Rock Slide, that's about it. But yeah, there's not too much else that it would be, would be useful for it. And then obviously Protect would be useful in doubles. Yeah, it's very limited. And then physical moves, there's no real point running Drill Run at all, even though it suits, it suits Excadrill a lot more than Earthquake. You've got Earthquake. High horsepower is good for singular targets in doubles. We've got Rock Blast. We sort of went over that already. You got Rock Slides. And then we sort of have, you got like one hit KO cheese and stuff like that, but that's all luck stuff. And then you got Stopping Tantra, of course, if you want to try and mess around with that. Rapid Spin obviously is very good. Iron Head is on every set because it's very good and can flinch and hits very, very hard too. Special moves, these are going to be woeful. Actually, no, there's one special move, Steel Beam, can be somewhat useful. In singles, right, you could potentially, instead of Rapid Spin, you could potentially have Steel Beam on there to set your Stealth Rocks up, and then you could just nuke your own Pokemon before they can, Rapid Spin or Defog or get rid of them. So that could be one way of getting rid of the Excadrill off the field fast if its role was just to set that up and feint, right? That's about all I could think of for that. I'm just trying to think of some other stuff you could do with this Pokemon. It's a very it's very like kind of like one tracked, It just works well doing those things. Any other sand abilities too? Let's have a quick look at that. Gastrodon, you might be able to slide Gastrodon with Sand Force onto there as well. I have done a guide on Gastrodon as well if you want to check that out. So you might be able to put Gastrodon to the team with Sand Force. That could be somewhat useful as well if you wanted to. There are a few sand abilities. Sand Spit could work as well with Sandaconda. That could be an option. So you could do that, but Tyranitar and Hippowdon are going to be better because theirs is more immediate, whereas you need to be hit by an attack, right? And also you need to be hit by attack to even activate that, so it's not going to activate right away. You could have Tornadus as well. Could set up Sand if you want that. With Prankster, that could do that. I'm just trying to think of some other Pokemon that would work, that would work well here. You could use Indeedee as well. You could actually have that. Just for Psychic, I just have it for Psychic Terrain, so, once it's got a speed up, it wouldn't be able to be hit by any priority moves. That could be interesting, having a Sand and that at the same time. Yeah, there's not too... I'm pretty sure I've kind of like... I think I've mentioned everything that you could possibly mention about Excadrill. If you've got anything else to add, let me know in the comment section. I'd like to know. I'm just thinking any other Sand abilities here that I could... So you've got Sand Veil, that's about it. And then you've got something... There's more gimmicky Pokemon like Palossand and stuff like that. You've got another Sand Rush, like you've got some lower sort of usage Pokemon like Sandslash that has Sand Rush as well. So you could try that on there. But I think I've mentioned all the really good ones. Any Steel Pokemon. They're obviously Steel Pokemon as well. Corviknight, Goldengo, I've mentioned them. You could possibly have... Iron Crown wouldn't be too bad as well. Like, you just have to watch you don't get too many Pokemon that are weak to fighting. That's why Goldengo is quite good. I like Goldengo for that, for that reason, for sure. Scissor's always good too. That's another good partner. There's lots of good ones, for sure there. But as for Mega Excadrill, I think its ability is just going to remain the same. Unless it gets some sort of new ability that powers up Drill Moves or something like that. But it only learns Drill Run. I don't think there's too much else there. I think it's going to have Sand Rush. That's my personal opinion. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Excadrill is a very, very good Pokemon. Always has been. Performs the best in sand. Use it under the sand. That's where you'll get the most out of it. Outside of that, it can be a good lead for sending up rocks, and getting rid of entry hazards more so in singles. And, you know, just a general great Pokemon in the sand. I wonder what its Mega will have. Tell me what you think it'll have in the comment section. I'd be interested to know. And I'll catch you next time. Peace.